Protect your DNA. BioPQQ can promote formation of new mitochondria. Infowarsstore.com.
Today there was a new leak of classified documents, this time about the American drone program, or more clearly, the American assassination program. This is done by the same people that leaked the Ed Snowden documents, Glenn Greenwald, and those at The Intercept. We'll talk about that in a moment, but first, I want to give you this story from Popular Science that I think is an allegory about how rapidly technology can change in our society and change things into a world that we don't really realize, with dangers that we've never seen before. Tesla cars last night became autonomous overnight. And as Popular Science puts it, the rise of the machines has begun, fittingly via an overnight wireless global awakening. They say owners of Tesla Model S and Model X electric cars woke up today to cars that were suddenly empowered to drive themselves down the road, simply with a software update. And of course, they were able to do this because they had already pre-positioned the hardware into the vehicle. For example, they've got forward radar, they've got forward-looking cameras, they've got long-range ultrasonic sensors, braking and steering controls. So all they have to do is just change the software, and it's ready to go into autonomous mode. They say because the software is still at an early stage, it's important that people exercise caution. But in the long term, drivers will not need to keep their hands on the wheel. Eventually, there won't be steering wheels or pedals. Isn't that exciting? Well, quite frankly, I'm not interested in a car like that. Even though it can change lanes, even though it can self-park, even though it can brake and stop automatically, and it can accelerate automatically when people get out of their way in the lanes. This is how quickly things can change. And of course, we've talked many times about the dangers of autonomous driven cars. The dangers, of course, are obvious in terms of software malfunctions or hardware malfunctions where you don't have any control, where you've lost the steering wheel, where you've lost the brakes, where you become totally dependent on the technology. But it also allows the government to exercise a control grid. And one of the things that they mention in this Tesla article, they say another distinction from other semi-autonomous systems is that the Tesla cars will collect data about their use in order to refine and enhance the system, and also to share that information with the government, of course. And so that brings us to where we are with the information about drones. We know that drones have been used as assassination vehicles. We know that they've used them to kill American citizens without due process in other countries. And we've asked the question, how long will it be before the president can set up a drone kill list and execute people that he doesn't like in America? Because in principle, nothing has essentially changed in that. Now, this new leak is something that was hinted at in the film documentary Citizen4. They say that in the film Citizen4, at one point, Greenwald shows Snowden a diagram of the authorization chain for drone strikes that ends with the president, one that looks very similar to the one that was included in today's publication. There were slides that were leaked in this. And the person who leaked this information, I think, had a very important message. He says, this outrageous explosion of watch listing, of monitoring people, of racking and stacking them into lists, of assigning them numbers, assigning them quote-unquote baseball cards, assigning them numbers, their death sentences without notice on a worldwide battlefield. It was from the very first instance wrong, he says. We're allowing this to happen, and by we, I mean every American citizen who has access to this information now, but continues to do nothing about it. That's exactly right. We've had situations in the past where we've been told about this, we've been told about what's going on with the NSA, what's been done about that. A lot of us are upset about it. A few politicians like Rand Paul have introduced bills to try to stop this, but the vast majority of politicians don't want anything done about it. The vast majority of Americans are okay being spied upon continuously because they don't value liberty. They don't understand the danger of a government that knows everything about you, that distrusts you, that paints you as a threat to the government. That is incredibly dangerous. And of course, we've seen politicians at high levels being blackmailed with this information. Now, of course, what is the reaction of the press? A good example of this is the Daily Mail. The way they react to this is the way that we've seen the press react to the leaks that we got from Snowden or the information that we got from Manning and WikiLeaks about criminal action from the government. Instead of going after the government, instead of criticizing the government, of course, they go after the person who leaked the information. And that's what we see in this headline from the Daily Mail. They say, U.S. spy chiefs are hunting the new Snowden. Whistleblower leaks top secret drone assassination program that reveals how 90% of the people killed in a 5-month spree weren't targeted. In other words, this is what they used to call collateral damage. But that's not a problem, is it? The problem is that the information got out. The problem isn't that we're murdering people indiscriminately, that we're just doing this by executive order. No, that's not the problem. The problem is that the information got out. And of course, when they talk about this, we've had all these different euphemisms that they use. Targeted killings, we call the list, they've called that the disposition matrix. All of that doesn't take away from what is essentially the issue here. And that is that we have a government that is using assassination as their policy. They say at the beginning of the article, drones are simply a tool. The policy is assassination. And I'm reminded that years and years ago in the church committee hearings, the nation and the world were appalled when William Colby, the then director of the CIA, was honest and candid and said, as he held up guns, these are assassination guns. We can shoot people, the bullets dissolve, and you don't know who we've killed. And yet we have come to accept this as normal, as acceptable. And you have to ask yourself, who watches the watchers? These are the people who we have hired supposedly to protect us and to make us safe. Who keeps us safe from them when they go off the rails? What happens when their geospatial intelligence programs and their Minority Report software tags somebody who really isn't a threat? When we get a false positive on that. And that's where we're going. This article doesn't really talk about the current technology. It doesn't really even talk about the future technology, the near future technology that may be ready to be deployed at this point. We know from the author Ann Jacobson, who wrote The Pentagon's Brain, exposing the history of DARPA, we know that they had drone programs back in Vietnam. We know that Operation Northwoods, they were talking about remote-controlled civilian airliners that they would fly into buildings so they could blame it on the Cubans, not Al-Qaeda, not Osama bin Laden, but the Cubans at the time, so they could have an excuse to invade Cuba. This has been around a very long time. They keep technology on hold for a very long time, and we've had glimpses of what is in the near future. And of course, when you look at a Pentagon mindset that wants to do remote control killing, you have to keep this in mind with the robots that DARPA is developing. The fact that they want to have killing machines that they can operate from a distance that perhaps will be autonomous. This is the new Terminator future that they're planning for us. They already have much of the technology in place, and that is what's very concerning about this. Not only that they would have this program where the president sets up his list, but what is coming next? And we've talked about this earlier this week. It was just within the last week or so that DARPA came out with a drone program, saying that they want to have a system called Icarus that will essentially dissolve the drone, just as we have William Colby talking about how he has assassination bullets that dissolve so we don't know who they've assassinated. Well, now they can have drones that disappear after they've killed innocent people, because 90% plus of the people that they're killing are innocent people. All that does is harm our effort, our war effort, but it is a shedding of innocent blood, and it is an authoritarian assassination policy. Should we be concerned? Look at this article from Politico talking about Obama's efforts to nudge America to use behavioral science to adapt what you think in terms of the government, or think about what the government tells you to follow their agenda. They call it now nudging. We used to call it propaganda. And when you look at this article from Infowars.com today about the Department of Justice creating a new Domestic Terrorism Division, understand that the gloves have come off. They're actively and openly engaging in propaganda and assassination of their political enemies. They're trying to convince the public using social media and other sophisticated methods who their enemies are. And of course, we know who they think their enemies are. They have said, and specifically say, as they introduced this program, they're far more worried about domestic terrorists, about people who are anti-government, than they are about Islamic jihadists that we have been told are the real targets. No, the real targets are the people who question the government's authority. They made that very clear, and Alex Jones pointed that out today when he said they want to talk about sovereign citizens who question the government's authority in a certain area. What about the illegal immigrants who come in and ignore everything about the government's authority? Of course, they're not concerned about them. That's what we need to be concerned about, a government that is going to use these tools, these assassination tools, these Minority Report tools to identify their political opposition. Stay with us when we come back. We're going to talk to Joe Biggs, our reporter who went to San Antonio today to cover the Hillary Clinton rally, and Michael Zimmerman, the cameraman who was with him. We'll be right back.
Knockout is back. If you want a product that has 10 known ingredients that naturally get your body to relax, your brain to relax, so you get deep, restful sleep, Knockout's it. Infowarslife.com. L-theanine, hops flower extract, lemon balm extract, valerian root extract, chamomile flower extract, L-tryptophan extract, melatonin, and more. All organic, all the natural sources. It's the same price as leading brands of melatonin that are 3 milligrams a piece. It has 3 milligrams, the standard recommended dose for an adult. It's got the GABA, so it would probably cost $50 to take all this as separate pills. It's $19.95. You take 1 or 2 of these, and it just is really clean, restful sleep is what the reviews are. It's what I've experienced, and it just synergistically puts everything in there. Infowarslife.com. That's Infowarslife.com, or call 888-253-3139.